Hi, everyone. You are listening to Radio Cherry Bombe, and I'm your host, Kerry Diamond, coming to you from Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center in the heart of New York City. Today's guest is Rosie Kellett, author of In for Dinner, 101 Delicious, Affordable Recipes to Share. Rosie, who lives in London and stopped by the studio for a chat when she was in New York for the launch of her book, is an expert in communal living and communal cooking. She and her housemates pool their money and cook for each other throughout the week. They also have specific chores and kitchen assignments. Rosie makes sure the fridge is always in order. Another housemate does the budgeting and grocery shopping, and so on. They have rules, of course, and Rosie and her housemates are all dedicated to making the system work. Her debut cookbook details the recipes her housemates love and some of the stories behind their unique way of living. Rosie and I talk all about communal life, her career as a young playwright, her time as a PA for actor Samantha Morton, and the goals she set for herself that led to her social media success. I had a blast talking to Rosie, so stay tuned. Today's show is presented by Square. What if your favorite sports bar only showed women's sports? That's the big idea our friend Jenny Wynn turned into reality in 2022 with the Sports Bra in Portland, Oregon. Thousands of fans showed up on opening day, and within 8 months, the Sports Bra had served fans from all over the country and brought in nearly $1 million in revenue. But behind the scenes, the tech couldn't keep up. Their point-of-sale system kept crashing during game days, right when the bar was packed with so many excited fans. That's where Square came in. Square is the restaurant point-of-sale that helps you manage it all, from one place: payments, staff, customers, insights, and more. Now, the Sports Bra runs on Square. From faster service to better reporting, the team finally has a system that works as hard as they do. And with Square's help, Jenny is planning to bring the Sports Bra to cities across the country. When your business is growing, you need a point-of-sale tool that's on your team, like Square. Go to square.com/big to see how Square can help you. A little housekeeping before we get to Rosie. The Italy issue of our print magazine is finally here, and it is so beautiful. You print girlies will love it. Thank you to our guest editor, Fiorella Valdesolo, for doing such a great job. You can find a copy at cherrybombe.com or from your favorite bookstore or culinary shop. We also have a great Italy-inspired gift guide on our website. What else? I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, but Cherry Bombe has a Substack. If you're a Substack lover, I know I am, be sure to check it out and subscribe. You can subscribe for free or become a monthly or annual paid subscriber. I'll be contributing some essays in the weeks ahead, so be on the lookout for that. I'll put the links for all of this in our show notes. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Rosie Kellett, welcome to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited that you're here. I literally have a million questions for you, so I've got to kind of rein it in.
Great. I'm ready.
First, I have to ask you, we're actually in person, which is amazing because you live in London. You're here for the launch of your book. How are you finding New York?
I love it. I love it so much. I mean, we got in yesterday afternoon from Edinburgh. I had an event in Edinburgh and then we flew here and it was super, super smooth. And we actually had the most New York kind of like crazy evening last night. My boyfriend's with me. He's never been to the US before anywhere. So he's very lucky because we're doing New York, LA and San Francisco. And I'm like, what a jammy little trip for you. But anyway, we got in and my friend Celeste works at Per Se, Thomas Carr's restaurant. And I was like, oh, Celeste, I'd love to see you while I'm here. She was like, yeah, you should pop by for a glass of champagne. And I was like, absolutely. So we go to the restaurant. She's not there yet. And they like usher us to this table. And it's that amazing table with the view of like the Central Park and everything. And me and my boyfriend were like, well, this is quite nice. And then one of our colleagues comes over and he gives us some champagne. And we're like, thank you so much. And then they were like, yeah, a chef has prepared a few snacks. And we were like, oh, that's really sweet. We're not eating, but that's so kind of you. Because we're like, we can't afford to eat that. And they were like, no, we know, but we've prepared something anyway. Anyway, what followed was like a 7-course tasting menu. The dessert course alone had like 8 dishes in it. And then Celeste was like, we'd like to give you a tour of the kitchens. And we had this whole tour of the kitchens and they printed the menu for us and they wrote in for dinner at the top. I felt like crying at the end of it. They sent us home with some chocolates and it was honestly like a fever dream. And me and Jack just walked back to the hotel kind of like blinking, like he's also a chef. And for him, it was mental. So yeah, New York so far has been a dream.
I wish we could greet all visitors that way with a lovely little tasting menu and some champagne at Per Se.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy you had a nice soft landing when you got here.
Thank you.
I have to ask, are you the slutty chef?
No.
Because she came to New York with her boyfriend. I can't remember if it was her or the boyfriend who had never been to New York.
I know. I am not the slutty chef, but she is an angel. I love her book. Her book is brilliant.
Do you know her?
We're internet friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said she's an angel, so I was like,
Yeah.
All right. Well, just establishing that's not you.
It's
but
not me.
I did love that book as much as I love your book, which we're going to talk about in a sec. What else is on your list to do while you're here?
Well, tomorrow I'm on the Today Show,
Ooh.
which is very exciting. So I've got a very early start tomorrow morning.
Congratulations. What are you wearing?
Thank you. Great question. This honestly nearly broke me because I'm like...
Emotionally and financially?
Yeah. Well, I'm very lucky. My housemate, Virginia, has great taste. She's Italian. They all have great taste.
Oh, I read a lot about her. Mm-hmm.
She's phenomenal. And she loves clothes and she loves styling people. And ahead of this tour, I was freaking out about clothing in general for all the different events. And eventually I was like, oh, I just hire Virginia. And so I was like, babe, do you want to just style me actually and plan everything and photograph everything and just tell me what to wear? So she's done this incredible job and she's got all my outfits and I just have to put them on, which is such a relief. So we've gone pretty low key tomorrow. I'm going to wear jeans and a tank top, which I will feel comfortable in, which means I'll probably do a better job in. I was like, it can't show any visible sweat. I'm going to be stressing. I don't want anything that's going to have a sweat mark on it. You know that classic thing with TV where they're like, no black, no white, no patterns? That's my entire wardrobe. So I was like, I don't know what else I'm going to do. Anyway, she figured it out, which is exciting. So that's tomorrow. And then I'm doing a video with Food 52. And then I have an event in the evening at Archistratus, Books and Foods, with Justine Doran, who's lovely. And I had coffee with this morning. So I'm excited about that. And then the following morning, we fly to LA very early.
Oh, I love it. We love Justine. That's great. Sounds like you have wonderful friends.
Well, you know what? I respect Justine so much. We were not friends. I was just a fan of hers, frankly. And I was chatting to my publisher and they were like, who would you like? You know, do you have any friends who you want to do this? I was like, I don't know Justine, but I think she sounds great. And can we ask? Because we have the same publisher. And so they asked her and she's just very game and generous. And she was like, yeah, I'll do that. And then we had coffee and she's the best. And I just think, what a doll. She's a busy lady. And she didn't know me until today. So
she's also a very thoughtful person. So that's great.
Yeah, very.
And your stylist friend and your friend who's at Per Se.
I know.
Oh, and we're going to talk about your friends and flatmates pretty soon too.
Yeah.
Well, the Today Show's going to love you for sure because you just have so many fantastic tips to share with the world. And we're going to get to some of those. Okay, so then you've got LA and San Francisco.
Yeah.
Similar itineraries kind of plans for those cities?
Yeah, LA, I'm doing KTLA in the morning, doing a little demo. And then most excitingly, like this is the thing I'm kind of living for, I'm going to cook a supper club with my friend Chloe Walsh, who on Instagram, she's Chloe Cooks, and she's a food stylist and a cook and a supper club host. And she's also a Brit. And we'd become friends on the internet. And then she was in London in spring and we went for dinner and she was like, you're coming to LA. We have to do a supper. So I'm doing that on Friday, which is going to be great. I used to live in LA, but that was 14 years ago. So going back to farmers markets and sort of being there on my own terms will be it's going to feel like very full circle for me.
The best farmers markets.
Oh, just the best. Yeah. And what's funny is when I was there as a teenager, I grew up in this teeny tiny village in Derbyshire, it's really a speck on the landscape of England. And went to this farmer's market and we were really jet lagged. And there was like a goat milk farmer with these baby goats. But it was all very cute. And I had this little girl I was nannying with me. We're like, oh, the goats. And we went over. And his accent was just really familiar. And I was like, where are you from? And he was from my village.
No.
And he was like, referencing the teeny tiny cafe that's in the village that I used to work in. And we knew all the same people. And I was like, this is bizarre that I'm 11,000 miles away from home. And there's someone here from Monash, of all places.
We'll be right back with today's guest. Cherry Bomb's Jubilee Conference is headed to Los Angeles in just a few weeks. It's taking place Sunday, September 28th at Hudson Loft in downtown LA. It'll be a full day of inspiring conversations, delicious food and drink, and incredible community. Since 2014, this one-of-a-kind gathering has celebrated the voices and talents of women across the worlds of food, drink, restaurants, and hospitality. Now, it's LA's turn, and we can't wait to give the city the love it deserves. And guess who will be on stage? Melissa King, Courtney Storer, Molly Boz, Suzanne Go, and Bricia Lopez, and Erin Goyoaga will all be there, just to name a few. Tickets are sold out, but you can join the waitlist at cherrybomb.com. We often have a few spots open up. I can't wait to see all of you in LA. You've had so many lives. You did theater writing and acting. Tell us about that part of your life.
Yeah, well, it was a chunk. It was a decade. So I'd grown up super rurally, always wanted to be an actor. I actually just think I wanted to be a performer. I'd done a lot. I like played violin from the age of like 4. Both my parents are musicians. They have 4 children. The rule was we all had to play an instrument. And the rule was once you get your grade 8, you can quit. And I don't know if the system's the same in the US, but grade 8's the last grade. So it's at least 10 years of playing, basically. So I'd done that, and I was in orchestra and quartet, and then I was in the choir, and I loved to sing, and then I started doing ballet, and I loved to dance, then I got into musical theatre, and I was a real musical theatre kid. And then I think I thought, no, I just want to be an actor. That's a bit cooler. And so I chased that for a bit, and I met an actress who actually bought the house I grew up in, and we moved like 10 minutes down the road. And we became friends, and she was like, well, if you want to be an actor, why don't you come and work for me for a year and see what it's really like and see if you still want to do it. And I was like, yeah, great. So I moved to LA with her.
So you were her PA?
I was her PA, which involved being her driver, cook, nanny, bit of everything.
Wow. I'm dying to ask you who, but I guess you can't say.
I know I can. I've talked about it. Yeah, it's fine. We're good friends. She's called Samantha Morton.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, she's amazing. And I've since worked for her again over the last like 10 years, but this was the first kind of stint when I was a young girl, really. So yeah, I did that, and then when I finished...
Did it cure you of the acting bug?
Nope. I was like, yeah, let's go. I mean, I guess also I was seeing this very lofty version of being an actor. You know, she was at the time shooting a couple of films in the US, and we did a bit of filming in Shanghai, and it was like a very glitzy, successful version of being an actor. But it very much gave me the reality of it, because I was like, oh yeah, the days are long and the work is hard, and it doesn't matter how successful you are or where you sit on the call sheet, you work really, really hard. So I was under no illusions. And we moved to London when I was 20. I got an agent. I started working in theatre. And then I started writing theatre. And I mostly did that, really. I wrote plays.
I was going to ask what that means, because I've heard you talk about that before. And I wasn't sure what theatre writing means. I know like TV shows have writers' rooms.
Yeah.
What's theatre writing?
It's very lonely. You write a play, you know, on your own in your bedroom or wherever. And then, generally speaking, you would maybe work with a dramaturg, which is kind of the equivalent of a script editor in the TV film space.
So you were a playwright?
Yeah, I was a playwright. Then you basically try and get the play put on, which means it would be commissioned by a theatre and a producer would get involved, and then your play would be in a theatre. And sometimes if you're more established, it would be the other way around. You wouldn't need to write the entire thing. You would pitch an idea to a theatre and they'd be like, yeah, let's commission that. And then you write it. But I wasn't that successful. I was in the stage of like, you write the whole play and you submit it for competitions and you send it to your agent, and your agent will be like, yeah, I think it needs some tweaks or whatever. And I did that for a long time. And I was also auditioning for shows and as an actor still, but doing more writing. And I reckon in the 10 years I was doing that, for the last 5, I was completely miserable. And it took a very long time to accept that this was not actually making me very happy anymore. It didn't really matter that I wasn't making any money. I just was miserable. And I didn't want to do it, but I was kind of forcing myself to sit at the desk and churn out these plays. And at the time, I was like 29 and I was dating a guy who was a musician. Wasn't even that successful. But he would get out of bed in the morning and skip to the studio to write another sad song. And I just thought, I want to feel that way about what I do, and I do not. And so I had to really reckon with myself and be like, what does set my heart on fire? Why do I get up in the morning? And it was obvious to everybody else but me that it was food. And then I kind of realized, I was like, oh, it's feeding people. But I'd resisted it for so long because I thought, no, that's what I do for joy. That's where I find solace. If I turn it into my career and I like commodify it, maybe I'll lose the thing that I love so much about it. And I was quite scared of that because I was like, no, that's like the one last thing I've got. But it was...
Were you in the warehouse, the famous warehouse that
yeah.
we're talking about? At that point, you were in the warehouse.
Yeah, I'd been there for 3 years at that point.
And the communal kind of living and cooking was in full effect.
Yes, it had always been in full effect. So it had been in full effect from the beginning of the warehouse existing. I've now learned, because after I grew a following on the internet, lots of people who used to live in the building had found the videos and been like, oh my God, that's where I used to live. And lots of them have messaged me and given me more information. And so I learned that it sort of started in 2011 or something. And the first person who set it up had lived in Spain in a similar setup and then basically introduced it to the building. So it had always been the system. And when I got there in 2020, there was like 12 people living there at the time. It changed a lot. But that was the system when I got there. And they were like, this is what we do. If you're not interested, then,
don't move in.
Don't live here.
We're going to talk about the system in just a second. But since you're talking about transitioning from a job you didn't love to one you did, I'm sure there are a lot of folks out there listening right now who are like, I don't like my job and I would love to transition to a job in food. If you're waiting for a sign, folks, here's your sign.
Yeah.
How did you do it?
Well, I'd worked in food kind of as my rent money job for 10 years. And I feel like I'd seen a lot of the industry. And part of the reason I was resistant about changing was I couldn't see a career I wanted. So even in the women and men, but mostly the women that I was looking up to that were the most successful, I thought, I don't want your life. So why would I do it? I had this overwhelming urge to do something different. So I sort of had to think I need to create for myself the thing that I want to do. And so I did this private promise to myself. When I decided to make the change, and I was like, okay, I'm going to dedicate my life to food now. I realized I'm 30. And if I want to get anywhere quickly, I'm going to have to share things on the internet. But that does make me want to poke my eye out with a rusty nail. Like the idea of putting my face and my voice and talking to the internet. It was all so cringe. And I didn't know how to do it either. And I was really lucky. My housemates are all a lot younger than me. And I asked them for advice and they taught me how to make a TikTok and an Instagram. And they were really sweet, actually. But I made this very private promise to do 3 reels a week and TikTok every day for a few months and see what happened. Hellish. And I also wrote a list. This was when I was deciding to do it. I wrote in this notebook, the vision. And then in the vision, there was this list. And it was like, start a supper club, start a Substack, write a cookbook, share recipes online, and I can't remember. I think that may have been it. But it was like goals. I was like, if I can achieve any of those things, that will be a start. And they are things I want. Because I loved writing. I knew I loved writing. I just thought theatre isn't it. So I need to find a different way of writing. And Substack was, at that time, about 2 years ago, it was already on the up. It almost felt too late, actually, to start a Substack. Like I already had the feeling of like, ooh, maybe I've missed the boat on this one because it's going to get flooded. But I did it anyway. And so I guess I just had, this like unwavering, I think because I already felt I'd failed. Like I'd gotten to my 30th birthday and I was like, cool, you gave it a good shot, but you failed. You didn't achieve anything. And you're just going to live a life now that is not interesting and just try and be happy.
You were tough on yourself.
Yeah, really tough. Like it sounds so mad now. But yeah, brutal on myself. And I just thought I need to be happy. So what will make me happy? And I thought if I can write about food every week and 10 people read it, that would be nice. And if I can do a supper club 4 times a year and people come and eat my food, that would be good. So I just sort of took it right back to bare bones of like, what do I want from life? And how can I just live a little bit happier? Rather than being like, I want to get to where she's at and how did she do it? And I didn't want to replicate anything I could see because I didn't like anything I could see.
Let's talk about the communal living and how that ties in with your wonderful cookbook and for dinner and food and all these great recipes. So you move into this group living situation, we'll call it, in a place called the Warehouse. And you had how many roommates?
When I first moved in, it was many, but it became, for the majority of the time, there was 7 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
You all contributed over time. It was $25, $30 per week.
Yeah.
And from that, you'd buy all your groceries, all the household goods that you needed, and you would take turns cooking.
Yeah, that is it.
Did you adapt to this right away? Did you find this a very natural way to exist?
Yeah. Well, I will say that in the interview, because I had to do an interview to move in, at the time, I'd viewed so many flats, couldn't afford any of them. This was a last resort. I did not want to live in a warehouse. The warehouse community in London have a reputation for being...
I have Fleabag in my brain.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
And it's like parties and raving and lots of drugs and like really hardcore kind of lifestyles that I just did not want any part in. And I didn't know this, but the one I was moving into had a nickname. It was dubbed the retirement warehouse by our neighbours because we all liked to go to bed on time and we all had normal-ish jobs, you know, and we didn't rave on a Tuesday. And so, but I didn't know that. So when I got to the interview, it turns out there were 24 people looking at the room that day, or like 12 that night, 12 the next night. So when I got there, I looked at the room and it really was a windowless cell. It was just a white box of a room, no window, no fresh air. And I thought, if this is all I can afford, like maybe I shouldn't be living in London anymore. And then I went down and sat at the kitchen table and chatted to everyone. And they had obviously, they're so bored of talking about it, but they'd reel off the whole spiel. And I think usually people are a bit like, oh, I don't really want to cook. I don't want to eat your food. You know, they have issues with it. But I was sitting there and my heart was kind of going like, you know, beating really fast. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And I was like, play it cool. Like, don't look too desperate. But I also need to make them know that I love cooking, but I don't want to look desperate. So I had to try and be as cool as possible.
This was like a date.
Yeah, it was a date. It was so a date. But my only concern was I don't understand how you don't run out of food. I don't understand how, you know, certain ingredients, like even if you just shop once a week, like what if you run out of all the onions and then what are you doing then? And what if like all the eggs go too quickly and then there's not enough? I just couldn't wrap my head around it working with that many people. And I also felt a bit like, you're not going to be as these people I was looking at. I was like, well, I don't know that you're going to care as much as I care about a good quality butter or, you know, anything like that. And so I don't want to eat crap butter, and how's that going to work? So I had a few concerns, but I was like, no, you know, beggars can't be choosers. We just get along with it.
Right. You didn't want to be known as like that butter bitch, and that's why you didn't that's why they didn't want you in the house.
I didn't want to be the snobby bitch that was like, we have to be using extra virgin olive oil.
You know, they'd be talking about you for weeks after that. Remember that girl with the butter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I did become the girl with the butter, but I think in a loving way. So anyway, moved in, and it just, the only way to kind of learn it is just to experience that it does work. And I can't really explain it, but it just does. So yeah, I took to it very quickly. And actually the cooking once a week thing was in a way not enough for me. So if people were out and there was a spare night, I'd be like, oh, I'll cook a second night this week because I really want to cook again. The biggest thing I think I noticed was I'd gone from living in a normal share house where everyone just fends for themselves, and where I was working 3 jobs, I was like really busy, and I would come home and be exhausted and have to cook and just feel a bit like, ooh. And then after a couple of months of being in the warehouse, I realized I had all this extra time in my day, and we had this dinner bell. So the building was huge. In order to get everyone downstairs, you'd ring the bell when dinner was ready. And there was this, like my old housemate B, who actually photographed in for dinner, we learned has like a hunger trigger. When she hears the bell, she's like instantly hungry. And so if anyone accidentally nudged the bell at a different time of day, she'd be like, is there, and there wasn't any food, then she'd be like gutted. But yeah, that thing of having an extra hour to write in my bedroom and then hearing this bell ring, it was like a motivation to keep going and do a bit more work and then come downstairs and eat a lovely meal. It was revolutionary for me.
And I should say, when I said Fleabag earlier, I was not saying that Rosie is living a Fleabag existence or that she and the warehouse and the whole situation was that. That's that terrific TV show.
Very good TV show. But I mean, you joke, we did have a flea infestation once. There was like a quite iconic, traumatizing flea infestation that cost $1,500 to rectify. We didn't have that money. It was awful. So I am actually quite traumatized by fleas.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to bring that up. Okay, let's talk about some of the other rules, because obviously you have to have a lot of rules in place to make this work. And I heard that one of your unbreakable rules was everything has to be labeled when it goes in the fridge.
Yeah. Well, because each house member has a different chore, which sounds really strict and archaic, but essentially it just means there's a responsibility for which you're in charge of that keeps the house running well. And with 7 busy people living in a massive building, you need that. So there's someone who does the recycling, someone washes all the tea towels and the bath mats and makes sure there's a clean rotation in the bathrooms. And my job is still actually fridge defender, which just
fridge defender.
Yeah, and the fridge defender. Chris is the laundry maiden. Wojciech is the recycling king or something. I can't remember. But yeah, it just means in the warehouse we had 2 fridges. One was a leftovers fridge and one was the main fridge. And so once a week I pulled everything out of the fridges, wiped them down, disinfected the inside, and then would put everything back in. And I'd try and do it a day before the new shop arrived, so that then when the fresh food came, there was like a clean fridge to put it in. And with 7 people all working different, and eating different things and living these lives, there'd be like a pot of yogurt that someone had lost the lid to, so it was uncovered and had gone like crusty and disgusting. And when I got that responsibility, I was like, listen, guys, if you don't label it, if you don't put your name on it, if there's no date on it, I will bin it. And I don't care how good it looks. Like, I don't care if it smells fresh. I'll just bin it, because I think it was just the professional kitchen background of like, fridges need to be in order. And I'm miserable if they're not. So, yeah, we still live by that rule and everyone gets it now.
Now, what if you have your own things? Because you're dealing with a lot of people's allergies and aversions, obviously, but somebody maybe wants the ice cream they want or the peanut butter they want.
Yeah, and in that case, they put their name on it and then nobody touches it.
And people are respectful of that.
Very, very. You have to be. I mean, yeah, we've never had a case where it's like, someone's eating my thing. Because it would just be so vicious if everything would crumble, I think. So everyone respects that. And like Pierre, one of my housemates, he's Filipino Chinese and he really likes his kimchi. And so he'll go to the Asian supermarket and get a really good kimchi. And it's like, no one touches it, because it's Pierre's kimchi. And same with, I have an obsession with only one cottage cheese. I think cottage cheese in general is bad, but there's this one brand in the UK called Longley Farm, which is a Yorkshire brand. And I was raised on the Longley Farm yogurts by my grandma. So I have a nostalgia for it. And it is the best. And you can only get it in certain shops. So I buy my own supply and label it and no one touches it. And it would be an issue if they did,
Now that's going to be my mission to find it next time I'm in the UK.
Yeah.
You do have someone who does all the purchasing. Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing there's a lot of spreadsheets and he will say, get your requests in.
Yes, no spreadsheet, just an encyclopedic knowledge of what we like to eat. Pierre deserves a medal. He manages the budget and also does the shopping. But by doing the shopping, I mean he does an online shop once a week. He has like the basket that we always add to. So there's a basket saved, which has all of the basics that we always eat: eggs, milk, fruit and veg. And then he'll say on, the group chat, he's like, well, get your orders in. And then if I want to cook something specific and I know I want to make, I don't know, caponata or something, then I'll say, can you make sure you get aubergines and courgette? And if we don't have any capers, can I get some more capers? Because we'll always have tinned tomatoes. He'll always buy onions and garlic. And so that's how it happens. And I don't know how he does it, but he just always makes sure that we're within the budget. We've never gone over, but we're also never short of food. In a strange way, since leaving the warehouse, we were evicted in March and we now live in a normal house, but still live in this system. We have more food now and the money's going further and none of us can understand it. We're like, we kind of joke. We were 7 in the warehouse. We're now 5. The 2 that left are a couple, Tom and Justin, who we adore, but they were thinking about living together anyway. So it was like a kind of perfect moment for them to do that. And they've gone. And they're both very tall, big boys. And we sort of dawned on us. We were like, with Tom and Justin not around, Tom would probably in a day what I would eat in a week or something. He eats a lot because he's a big boy, needs it. So yeah, it just works.
That's so funny. Sorry, Tom and Justin.
Sorry, Tom and Justin.
So you were evicted. That's never a fun thing.
No.
When you're not invited to re-sign your lease.
Yeah.
What happened?
It's a very long story, but at the time I'd chosen to go to Rome for a month in February. I'd done it the year before in Berlin. And it was actually when I was writing in for dinner. My deadline was March and I was like, February is the worst time in the world to be in London. It's like you're so far from what was summer. And January I can just about deal with, but February is horrendous. So I left the year before to go write my book. It was really good. And Berlin is just another cold grey city. I'd swapped one for another, but it was new and the food scene was new and there was different people and it was exciting enough to keep me going. So I thought this year I'm going to do that again. And I decided to go to Rome. I was learning Italian. Who wouldn't want to be in Rome? I found a place that was cheaper than my rent in London. So I was like saving money by living in Rome on my own. And anyway, it was dreamy. And 2 weeks into that month, there was rumblings of, danger back home. And there was a lot of big house meetings on the phone. And very long story short, our leaseholder wanted us out for reasons very personal to her. She's not our landlord. There's a landlord that the money eventually gets to. The leaseholder was the middle person. That middle person did not want us living there anymore and made it very, very difficult for us to stay. So we tried to resolve the issue and it did not get resolved. And then she served an eviction notice, which was completely illegal. There were no grounds for eviction. We could have stayed, But we decided that it would be more hassle to stay and fight than to leave and preserve our energy and happiness.
Are you turning all this into a TV show?
No, but I should be.
I mean, as you talk through this, I'm just seeing all these, different glimpses of shows that I have loved over the years.
Yeah. It's something I'm going to have to give it to a friend of mine or something. We ended up having about 3 weeks to find a new home, a new supper club venue, because we
didn't even talk about your supper club.
Yeah, that was started in the warehouse. It was ran in the warehouse.
Is that
it was
part of why she wanted you out?
I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder. But
because those got big.
Yeah. And they're actually quite small in reality, as in, we serve 32 people. And we do 2 nights back to back. And everyone that lives there is like a waiter. It's amazing. It's like all our best friends and our boyfriends, and cousins. Everyone just pitches in and we do this thing.
Right. I guess in the context of having 7 people living there, 32 is not that much.
No. And I guess also in the context of events in London that are doing well and are popular, we were being encouraged to make it bigger and bigger and bigger and do like 100 people. And me and Virginia, who jointly run it, were like, actually, what makes it special is that there aren't that many people here and that people will make friendships with strangers and it feels intimate and cozy. And it's not like going to a restaurant and you are in someone's house and it is all a bit random. So we loved that about it. But at this point in the year when we were like, we need to leave, we were 3 weeks away from a supper club. So we had to find a new home, new supper club venue. And then I was 6 weeks out from the book coming out and I'd planned to do the book launch party at the warehouse as well, obviously. So then I'm like, I also need a book launch venue. And so there were these 3 weeks where we all just kind of lost our mind. And we did find a house and we did find a new venue. And it was all good in the end. But it was not I remember returning from Rome on the 1st of March. And by the 15th, we had to be sorted. And I just thought, this is not what I had planned to return to.
Wow. How do you resolve differences with the group?
We have house meetings quite often. It's the only way, in my experience, to resolve conflict. It's kind of, I think, in most parts of life, good communication is kind of the backbone of things working. And we've all learned that over the years, that if we're not communicating, things go unnoticed, they fester, they get worse and worse and worse. Every one of my housemates at some time or another or currently has done therapy and has been in therapy, and I think we've all learned a language, ability and a confidence to share how we're feeling in a way that isn't antagonistic or I can't think of the right word now, but like it doesn't create more conflict. It actually just opens a door for honest communication. So as simple as it sounds, it's a regular meeting and listening, basically.
That's great.
Yeah.
You and I were talking earlier about what good timing this is because you've got so many people going off to college, university, who love cooking. I mean, so many young people really love cooking these days. And maybe this appeals to them, what you're talking about, this whole idea of communal living. If you're starting this from scratch, where do you begin?
It's a good question. I actually think to start this entire thing from scratch would be quite intimidating. And so when I've spoken to people in the past, I think the easiest way to kind of inch your way to living a little bit more communally is to choose one night of the week. And maybe it's a Sunday and you say on Sunday we're going to cook together and we're going to eat together and we'll all chip in a bit of money and then see how that goes. And if you enjoy it, then you could start, implementing a shopping list and maybe a bit more of the systems. But I think even with work, if you all work in an office and you like your colleagues and you all like food, it makes a lot more sense for everyone to bring a dish and everyone share and you get to eat 4 different things than bringing your own, lunch in every single day and have the sort of fatigue of thinking about what you're going to have for lunch. So I think in small baby steps, it's better to get into something. But if you love the sound of it and you're about to move into a student house, maybe your second year at college or something, and you want to do it, then I think just give it a go. An online shop is the way we make it work because it would be bizarre for Pierre to have to go to the supermarket once a week and lug all of the food home in London. That wouldn't work. So doing an online shop is good. It's also really good for staying within budget because you have a constant tally of what you're spending. And if you don't have the money in the account, you can't go over. So online shops are great. And I think, just giving it a go, really. It's really not that tricky. I think it's just because we've all been conditioned in this kind of like late stage capitalism world we live in. We've been encouraged to be solo and be like, a good consumer and live on our own and have one of everything and just, keep to ourselves. But actually, I feel like we're wired the other way. And it actually feels far more natural for me to be the other way. And I think the more you sort of encourage yourself to live in these sort of systems that are more, reciprocal and where people share and labor is divided, it feels right because it's easier. But the idea of it might feel intimidating, before you've done it. But it's good.
Well, I hope the success of your book really kickstarts something.
Me too.
Because just the way things are right now, everything you're talking about makes so much sense, Rosie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The book is fantastic. As I was going through it, I was like, I really want to make everything that's in this book. I love that the recipes are scaled for some bigger, parties because you don't, not parties necessarily, but more people, because you don't always get that. And scaling's not always easy. It's not just a matter of like ×2 or ×4.
No.
Can you give any advice for scaling?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because I learned about it when I was working there's a bakery in London called E5 Bakehouse, which is quite a well-known sourdough bakery, but they also have a kitchen and they'll do breakfast and lunch and brunch. And I started working there and it was my first savory role. I've done a lot of baking, sweet baking, but in a kitchen as a chef, it was my first role. And one of the responsibilities, if you're on the lunch shift, you have to cook the main, which is just the main meal. You need to make enough food for 70 people in about 2.5 hours. It's always vegetarian, but you need a vegan option as well. And it had to be using organic British produce. There was quite a lot of parameters. And there were no recipes. You had to come up with the thing you were going to make. And everyone else was quite good at just coming in and freewheeling it. But I, the day before, would be like, okay, I'm going to make a chili. And so I'd write a recipe for a chili. And then I'd be like, okay, well, we times by 10 because this one feeds 6 and I need it to feed at least 70. I learned by just timesing by 10 that did not work. So I once made like a cauliflower korma or something, and I think it had green cardamom in it, and I just times by 10. And it ended up with like 200 grams of like ground cardamom, and we got complaints. And I was like, okay, like that's not how that works. So I guess it's a little bit of trial and error. And I think if you're generally cooking for 2 people and then you're going to have 4 friends round, so it's going to be 6, and you have no idea, firstly, just use my recipes. They're all for 6. Buy the book. But I guess you could look at the recipes I've written and you'll see that if you have a tablespoon of olive oil in a thing for 2 people, like a stew or whatever, there's not suddenly 6 tablespoons of olive oil in a stew that I've written. Things like seasonings and olive oil and fat and stuff at the base of a recipe will not be times 6, but maybe the protein will be. And like, I guess you learn it through habit and actually doing it, and things going a bit wrong and then things going really well.
Right. It really is the doing.
It's the doing.
Just plunge in there and cook a little bit.
Yeah.
You will be shocked at how much you improve.
Yeah, yeah. Well, having said that, so my housemate, I feel so sorry for Wojciech. I push him under the bus every time I do a podcast. But when he moved in, he's Polish, and he moved in and he really didn't cook very much at all and was very underconfident. And a lot of people say to me, like, is there a really bad cook in the house? Like, is there one night of the week you don't want to eat dinner? And I'm like, no. But there was a time when Wojciech was a far less practiced. And there were a few nights, where we had a curry with raw potato and we'd be like, this is crunchy, this is new. But with encouragement, he got a lot better. And it was that encouragement, I think, and the practice and no one being like, this is disgusting, that allowed him to build his confidence and get better and better and better. And he now has 3 or 4 meals that he'll make on a rotation that are great. Like the pantry pasta in him for dinner is based on the pasta he makes. When I'm like, what are you making for dinner? And he'll say, oh, I'm just doing a quick pasta. And I know it's going to be anchovies, capers, garlic, like all the things I love. So yeah, I just think I've witnessed it because I come from a family of confident cooks. So it's weird for me to meet someone who's just a little bit unsure. But I've watched him grow and learn through doing it. And like the other day, he decided he wanted to make pizza for loads of people. And he looked at my book, he looked at the pizza recipe, he thought, that doesn't sound too tricky. I don't think he'd read it closely enough because it was the day. And he was messaging me going like, I'm going to make pizza, where's the mixer? And I was like, well, firstly, the mixer's not at home. But I was like, are you sure you want to make pizza? Because my recipe is kind of an overnight proof situation and you could do it today, but it's going to be a lot of work. The mixer's not there, so you're going to have to knead it by hand. And for 12 people, that's going to be like 20 minutes of kneading non-stop. Like, are you sure you want to do that? And then there was like a long silence. And then he came back and he was like, on reflection, I think I'll cook a quick pasta.
I love that. Let's talk about some of the recipes. Of all the recipes in the book, I know this is hard because you probably love them all equally. Is there one that's sort of a gateway recipe that would be a good one for people to start with?
Actually, the pantry pasta, I think, is. Even just for the fact that this was Wojciech's like confidence one. I've seen other people make it that struggle, and the idea of cooking for 6 people, makes them want to die. So that, I think, is a good place to start. Not only because it's easy, but it's also based on pantry ingredients that you have in the household, and it's extremely flexible. You could swap in lots of different things for it. The basic idea, I think everyone has a version of this pasta, but I call it pantry pasta. The basic idea is just good olive oil, some garlic, and then from there, the world's your oyster. But my version, I put a whole tin of anchovies in. There's like a good amount of chopped capers, chopped olives, doesn't matter what kind of olive, chuck that in. You're cooking your pasta in the background. The whole thing takes like 15 to 20 minutes. And then I'm like, you could use anything that you've got. You could do sun-dried tomatoes, marinated artichokes. You could throw some beans in. I always do the zest of a whole lemon, the juice of a whole lemon, a lot of fresh parsley at the end, teaspoon of chili flakes. My pro tip, actually, is use any shape of pasta. But rather than draining your pasta and trying to remember to save the pasta water and burning yourself in the process, which is what I always do, is scold myself with pasta water, I like to scoop all the pasta out of the pasta water and straight into the pot where your sauce is bubbling away. Because
so your
you bring
wet and kind of soaking.
Yeah, you kind of bring the pasta water with it. But also, I feel that you can control the cooking of the pasta a lot better. I like quite an al dente pasta. So I take it out even before it's al dente, cooked enough for me, and I let it cook a bit more with the other bits in the pan, the garlic and the capers and the olives and the lemon. And then you've got this pan of starchy water right next to you, and you can just take a tablespoon or two and slosh it in. And then the magic of the pantry pasta is you're tossing. Everything emulsifies and amalgamates, and you get this very glossy, kind of sexy pasta that has flecks of chili and lemon zest and capers and olives running through it. It's cost next to nothing to make. It's vegan by default if you don't put any of the tinned fish in. But you could add tinned fish, you could add parmesan. It's extremely flexible. And you've probably got all the ingredients in the house anyway. And if you don't, you adapt.
Sounds so good.
So yeah.
You also have a pantry ramen, right? Did I see that?
I do. And I feel like it doesn't get enough attention. I'm so proud of the pantry ramen. I sort of came up with the idea when I was living in Berlin writing this book, and I got sick. And I was like, all I need is ramen. But to make a good ramen, you need to be boiling your bones for a while. And it's a lot of, it's long to do a good one. And so I was like, I want to make a version that is using sort of Asian pantry ingredients that I've already got, comes together in 10 minutes. So is it, it's, what's the word? Instant noodles. I would buy instant noodles, cook them. Tofu puffs are like a hero in this recipe, but you could use any protein. But I love tofu puffs because they kind of soak up some of the broth. So I basically just warm them through with the noodles as they're cooking. And then I make the sauce in the ramen bowl. So the recipe serves one because the idea is you're making it for yourself when you just want ramen. And it's got Asian sesame paste in it, but you could use tahini or you could use peanut butter if you don't have that in. A little bit of soy, some vinegar, chili crisp oil, grated garlic. I think there's some thinly sliced scallions as well that go on top. And then you basically thin out this sort of quite thick paste that you've made in the bottom of the bowl, thin it out with the broth from the noodles that have been cooking in the background until you get to your desired consistency, add the noodles. And then I like to top mine with a marinated egg, which I also have a recipe for in the book, the sort of Korean-inspired marinated egg. And yeah, it's like, if you don't have £20 to buy a Deliveroo or Uber Eats, whatever, ramen, and you can't go out and you don't have time to cook it, this is the next best thing, in my opinion.
I might have to make that very soon. I love a peanut butter noodle situation so much. Tell us about your Substack, because like you mentioned, you started it kind of early. You thought you were late, but you were earlier than a lot of folks. How is your Substack different from your cookbook, or is it not?
No, it is a little different, actually. It's definitely got similarities. It's called The Late Plate. And I guess the other thing to explain the name of it, in our house, if you're not in for dinner, you can ask for a late plate, which means when you get home, there'll be a plate of food on the table for you. And it's a great system if you work late. And then Virginia, my housemate, will always work late. But she'll ask for a late plate every day. So it becomes her lunch at work the next day, which is clever. Anyway, that's the name, The Late Plate. Generally speaking, I share recipes. So every Wednesday I share something, and it's 9 times out of 10 it's a recipe. It'll be what I'm cooking. It'll be what I'm craving. It'll often be something with a story behind it. But then occasionally I'll do a piece of more personal writing, and I'm actually sharing something which I feel very nervous about, actually. It's all kind of about like body image and the beauty industry, and I guess that really about getting older, how I'm feeling about my appearance and my body and the things I've learned, I guess, over the years as a woman. and how I actually feel better as I'm getting older. But I have had a very bad relationship with body image in the past. So I use it for that as well. And I find that Substack as a space is one of the most, especially compared to Instagram and social media, where everything is very quick and there's not really space for nuance or explanation. I find I don't want to put anything too dangerous on social media because it could be misunderstood and then it can, spiral out of control. But with Substack, it's very intentional, the audience. They've all chosen to be there. They've subscribed. They might even be paying to subscribe. So when I share something more vulnerable, I think, while this is still scary and I'm going to have a bit of a vulnerability hangover tomorrow, when I've done it in the past, I've received so many lovely pieces of writing back from my subscribers. It's felt very reciprocal. I've learned things from them. I know it's helped people. And so it feels to be quite freeing and important and very as a writer, you don't often have the permission or the freedom to do what you want. You need to, get a book deal, or you have an editor or something. But on Substack, you are your own editor. There's a word I can't think of. It's jet lag has got me. I guess galvanizing. It makes me want to do more. I sort of, it feeds me. And it's the one thing I do every week that I look forward to all week. So, yeah, if anyone is not on Substack as a writer or a reader, I encourage you to join, because it feels like a very safe corner of the internet where good things are still happening.
So you are skipping to the studio to write sad songs in your own way, right?
Yeah, I'm skipping to the coffee shop to write sad newsletters.
Okay, last question. If you had to be trapped on a desert island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
Gosh, it would have to be Nigella Lawson. I'm a real
funny.
fan.
I just knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I love her. I love her cooking. I love her writing. I think she's hilarious. I think she's an icon. If Nigella would come to the island with me, then I'd be thrilled.
We love Nigella here.
We do.
She is the best. As are you, Rosie. I'm so thrilled that I got the opportunity to talk to you in person. All the success in the world. All your messages are wonderful. The world needs you right now.
Thank you, Kerry.
That's it for today's show. Thank you to Rosie Kellett for joining me. Pick up a copy of her debut book, In for Dinner, at your favorite indie bookstore. Please give Radio Cherry Bombe a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Our theme song is by the band Tra La La. Special thanks to Joseph Hazen at Newsstand Studios at Rockefeller Center. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Jenna Sadu, and our talent guru is London Crenshaw. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.